Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. It is indeed a Monday morning, but because we have heeded the word of Yah and recognize that this day is the very last day of the feast, the festival of Passover, we have come to celebrate. And our subject today is the flickering light of the lamp. The flickering light of the lamp. And the lamp of Yah as a distinguished provenance, even from the time of Moses, replicated in earnest during the time of Eli in the tabernacle of Shiloh when that light went out. Therefore, there is a provenance so sacred and so true, which speaks to the relevance of the lamp of which we are told is the word of Yah. David wrote that the word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Psalm 119, verse 105. So this morning we want to look at that lamp. We want to understand its light or lack of it, and the application and implications to ourselves. You know, as a young man growing up in England, I often see the crowds with voice tremendous, roaring at the arrival of Queen Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh as they appear either on the balcony of the palace in Buckingham or elsewhere in visits. And so those historic sightings were important to us growing up. Often Her Majesty would stand alongside other members of the royal family, and the crowds would cheer, whether in the drizzle of Britain's weather or in the dazzle of its scarce sunshine. We would see them and they would be greeted and appreciated. Now, I say this to kind of preset what I'm going to be reading and to remind you that the year was, I believe it was 1977. And it was the year that the Queen had spent 25 years on the throne. It was her silver jubilee. And as a consequence, she would go around the cities and tour the cities of England during that period of time. Now, as we know, she had succeeded to the throne in 1952 at the death of her father, King George VI. So it was now the Silver Jubilee, and it was 1977. I was a young man then, and the Queen was coming to Wolverhampton. And I gathered that she would be traveling along Dudley Road. I resided then at Ranelagh Road. And because of my nearness to Dudley Road, I decided that I didn't have to make all the preparation that the other people had to do. In that morning, people were putting out the chairs alongside the road, Dudley Road, and people had decorated their shops, and it was a grand day Prospectively, that's how it seemed. But because of my nearness to it, I decided I would stay home and I would have a little nap before the Queen comes along. She was on her way from Wolverhampton to Dudley. And somehow I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I learned that the Queen had come. She had traveled through, and I missed her. That is something that happened to me. And so it has given content to the substance of our study today. So turn with me to the book of Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25. And it reads, then the reign of the heavens, the kingdom of heavens, shall be compared to 10 maidens or 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish, having taken their lamps, took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their containers with their lamps. Now, while the bridegroom took time, he tarried. They all slumbered and slept, even as I did during 1977. They slept. And so at midnight, a cry was heard. See, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. In my case, the Queen is coming. Go out to meet him. But I fell asleep. And the word says that at midnight, when the cry went out, then all those maidens rose up and trimmed their lamps. I recall as a young man also that Granny Sampson, my grandmother, she had those little lamps at night, and she would trim the wicks to make sure that they're not burning smoke, but burning real fire and give light. And so I can understand when Yeshua uses this situation that people were familiar with to teach a spiritual lesson. It certainly taught me. Then all the maidens rose up and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, give us of your oil, because our lamps are gone out. Remember, I said earlier, thy word, the word of Yah, is a lamp unto my feet and a light to my path, the path in which I should walk, travel in life. I must get my instruction from this lamp. Decisions we make in life, they should come from the word of Yah. And so the foolish, they carried their Bibles to church. And they carried enough. But the word said, the bridegroom tarried. They did not carry extra oil in containers or in other vessels to ensure that if there is some disappointment, they will have enough. It's like in a hurricane here in Florida. When you hear that the storm is coming, you prepare yourself and make sure you stock your house with food and water. these foolish ones did not do that. And they are like those who at baptism they receive the former rain that softens the soil for the seed. That's the rain. In Israel, the rain usually comes around about October all the way to April and soften the soil so you can plant the seed. And Yeshua in Matthew 13 makes reference to that. And so when the former rain comes, the seed begins to grow. But they did not have the latter rain. Because you need the latter rain to make sure that the fruits are ripened. They did not have the latter rain. And so they said to the wise, give us some of your oil. And the word says that the wise said, no, if we give you, we will not have enough for ourselves. We got to understand here that the word says that the shout came at midnight. And we need to understand that there are 4 watches in the night. Yeshua himself said, are there not 12 hours in a day and 12 in a night? So we see from 6 to 9, that's the first watch. From 9 to 12, that's the second watch. And from 12 to 3, that's the third watch. And from 3 to 6, that's the fourth watch. It says that the shout came at midnight. That's within the second watch, when most people are asleep. And so the word goes on to say, and while they went to buy oil, this is verse 10, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. You better understand where I'm going with this. It said, while they went out to purchase oil for their lamps. Oil, as you know, represents the Ruach, the Holy Spirit. And it is he who teaches us the word and shines light into the lamp that we have. It is he. And when he comes, he teaches how many truths? All truths. But while they went out, it says, the bridegroom, Yeshua, came. Now turn with me quickly to the book of Lucas, and you're going to look in the 12th portion of it, and we will begin reading at verse 35. It said, let your loins be girded and your lamps burning, and be like men waiting for their master when he shall return from the wedding. That when he comes and knocks, they will open to him. How often? He says immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the master, when he comes, shall find watching. Truly, I say to you that he shall gird himself and make them sit down to eat, and shall come and serve them. And if he comes in the second watch, did you get me? I just said that at midnight, at the second watch. He said, if he comes in the second watch or in the third watch and find them so, blessed are those servants. The ones who stay up during the watch. He said, these are the blessed ones. And notice that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief comes, he would have watched and did not allow his house to be broken in, and you then be ready, for the Son of Adam is coming in the hour that you do not expect. Are you with me? He said we must be ready and we must keep watch and be like men waiting when the master returns from the wedding. Don't miss that. So as we read Matthew 25, we understand that this coming that is spoken here of the bridegroom is not talking about the second coming of Yeshua. That's not what he's talking about. This coming is when the Messiah comes from the holy place and he moves into the most holy place to the wedding and to the judgment, because the judgment must take place before we have the wedding. We need to understand that. So come with me to the book we call Malachi. Malachi chapter 3. See, I am sending my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. Then suddenly the master whom you seek comes to his echo. He comes to his temple. The people were waiting for the Messiah. But he doesn't come to their church or their institution or their assembly. He said he comes to his echo, his tabernacle, his church, which is in heaven. That's where we went. Even the messenger of the covenant in whom you delight, see, he is coming, said Yahweh of hosts. And he is able to bear the day of his coming. Who is able to bear the day of his coming? And who is able to stand when he appears? For he is like the fire of a refiner and like the soap of a launderer. And he shall sit as a refiner and the cleanser of silver, and he shall cleanse the sons of Levi and refine them as gold and silver, and they shall belong to Yahweh. Bring in near an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Yehuda and Jerusalem be pleasant to Yahweh as in the days of old, as in the former years. So we understand that he's coming, but this coming is not the second coming. A work he has to do. So Malachi tells us that he leaves the holy place and then he goes to the most holy place to meet his Father, where he is given his kingdom and glory, and the people are around him, and he judges them because he has to judge their character to determine who will be attending the wedding banquet. So the wedding here takes place in heaven. The wedding takes place in heaven. So it is by faith that we attend the wedding, even though we are on earth. Why? Because our names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And so by faith we do that. And let me explain that by way of turning to Daniel chapter 7. And I'll take you to the scene. And we're going to read verse 9 and 10. This is Daniel speaking, the prophet. I was looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like clean wool. His throne was flames of fire, its wheels burning fire. a stream of fire was flowing and coming forth from his presence, and thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judge was seated, and the books were open. Now, so Malachi said he leaves the holy place, as was done in the time of the Levitical priesthood. And he now goes to the most holy place, which is the day of Yom Kippur, judgment. And so we're told that he goes there and he is with the Ancient of Days, the Father. Now listen to verse 13. Verse 13 says, this is Daniel still in vision. I was looking in the night visions and saw one like the son of Enosh coming with the clouds of heaven. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And to him was given rulership and the preciousness and reign, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His rule is an everlasting rule which shall not pass away, and his reign that which shall not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was pierced within my body, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I was alarmed because he's here in the most holy place and he's judging the people. He's given his kingdom, because in John chapter 14, did he not say to us, I have gone away. Fret not yourself. Let not your heart be troubled. Why? I have gone to prepare a place for you, and I will come again and receive you unto me, and where I am, there you will be also. So we just read in Daniel that he moved from the holy place, the first apartment. How do I know? Because we are told in Revelation 1 that when Johanan saw him, first Johanan saw him in the midst of the candlesticks. And we know that the candlesticks are on the south side in the first apartment. We know the showbread is on the north side, and we know the altar of incense is in between both. And we know there's a curtain that separates the holy place from the most holy place. And this is where he's gone to be with the Ancient of Days. And Daniel tells us this is a scene of judgment. And so the people are being judged. Why? He's looking at character, because we're told that only a certain character can attend the wedding banquet. And just to consolidate that point, you better come with me to Matthew chapter 22. Because Matthew here writes along that theme to magnify our understanding of what is being said. Matthew said, and Yeshua responded and spoke to them again by parables and said, the kingdom of heaven is like a man, a sovereign, who made a wedding feast for his son, and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding feast, but they would not come. Again, he sent out other servants, saying, say to those who are invited, see, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and my fatted cattle. They are slaughtered, and all is ready. Come to the wedding feast. Now, this invitation is for all men. But as Yeshua told the woman at the well, salvation was first given to the Jewish people. Are you with me? But not only did they kill their Messiah, They rejected him to such an extent that some say he has not yet come. But they were invited. These were the VIP guests who were invited. I want you to understand, as we earlier read Matthew chapter 25, and I indicated then because the scripture said the city is the bride. That means the 10 virgins are the bridesmaid. They are the bridesmaid. And they were supposed to, with their torch lights, meet the bridegroom and through the procession, through the streets, take the bridegroom to the wedding banquet. But they fell asleep. And so, again, we are repeating here in Matthew what has been said. The kingdom is likened to a king who made a wedding feast for his son. And the invitations that were sent out, the people said, we're not coming. Understand where I'm going with this, because invitations are sent out to the people that today is the last day of Passover. It's an annual Sabbath that many have waited a year for, and all the people should come and keep this Passover day because he said it's the only convocation. You are to me. But some say we are going to work. Some say we're going to school. Some say we are going to play. They would not come. Then he said, go out to the byways and the hedges, because I don't want my oxen and my fatted cattle to be wasted. I don't want that. And they went out because those who were invited disregarded it and went their way, this one to his field and that one to his trade. How would you feel if you had set this date and you had decided to marry the most eligible man in town? Everybody speaks of this eligible man, and he's now your husband to be. And the people whom you have invited did not turn up. How would you feel? And he said, and the servants went out into the street corners and gathered all whom they found, both wicked and good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. Are you with me? I'm saying, if the city of Jerusalem, the heavenly city, is a bride, then how do they say that the church is the bride? And the wedding takes place in heaven, according to Daniel chapter 7, 9, and 10. Am I to assume that the bride was not at her own wedding? But we were at the wedding because of faith, because as I indicated, our names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. But when we leave the program and we do not keep these commandments and heed to what Yahweh, we, by way of the decisions we make in life, we etch our names out of the Lamb's Book of Life. That's serious. So join me in verse 11, because the word says, and when the sovereign came in to view the guests. You better understand this, because we read in Daniel 7, and I'm emphasizing the point so you get it. This is a day of judgment. It's a day of Yom Kippur when the high priest, and Yeshua is our high priest, he moves from the holy place to the most holy place. It's a day of judgment. Daniel said that the judgment was set and the books were open with our deeds. They were open because that judgment must take place first before he decides who is eligible to attend the wedding banquet. You get me? It's a character thing. And character is not shared. You have to develop your own character. So you can't pass it on. You can't inherit another person's character. You must develop that. It doesn't matter how tall daddy was, you must do your own growing. So he's looking at the characters of who will attend according to what the word is saying. So in verse 11 we read, and when the sovereign came in to view the guests, he saw there a man who had not put on the wedding garment. He had not the righteousness. He did not have the character. Are you with me? This man smuggled his way into the banquet. Not by way of invitation, but by way of insolence. He's impudent. To have gone to this banquet, the king's son, and not adhere to the protocol. So, and he said to him, friend, of course, you don't invite strangers to your wedding, do you? You invite friend. How did you come in here not having the wedding garment, not having the character that is required to be here? How? Why were you not wearing your linen? Your white linen? Why? Rather, you wore blue jeans and chinos. And you thought you could come in here by way of how you look. And the word says, and he was speechless. He was speechless. Then the sovereign said to the servant, bind him, hand and foot, take him away and throw him into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, many are invited, but few are chosen, few are obedient. Only few turn up on a day like this to the annual feast day. Only a few, even though everybody is invited. Then the Pharisees went and plotted out to trap him in his own words. Did you get that? They tried to trap him in his own words. So we are told that the end of time is going to be like the day of Noah's time. Isn't that what we're told? In Matthew 12, they asked Yeshua for a sign, and he said, hey, there will be no sign given except the sign of Jonah, who spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish. And I'm going to spend, so he said, 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And somebody somewhere had fudged that and have been teaching and continue to teach that Yeshua was crucified on a Friday, when the word tells us that he was crucified on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. That's how many ways we get 72 hours. And we can trace that through the book of John chapter 12, because we are told he came there in Jerusalem from Bethany. He came there and 6 days before the Passover, and he was there on the Sabbath, and the next day, which was Sunday, they called Palm Sunday, that's when he rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. So we know that he was crucified on Wednesday. And so it is likened to the day of Noah. Now, why is he saying that? He wants you to know, and he wants me to know, that when Noah went into the ark and the door, Noah's door, ark door, was shut. That's the close of probation. The door is shut. That means that Kodak moment that comes to you, whatever pose you're caught in, whether you're righteous or you're wicked, that's how you will spend your eternity. So Noah's door, shut door, represents the close of probation. Even though you're alive, your probation is closed because you have continued to reject the truth. And so we pick that up now in the book of Revelation, and we're going to turn to chapter 22, and we want to dilate upon verse 11. That's Revelation chapter 22 and verse 11. Remember, we just read that he went into the most holy place. And of course, he's making intercession to his Father because of our sin, because he wants to atone us. Some have taught that the atonement was at Calvary. And my question to them would be this: who officiated at Calvary? Remember, atonement is the work of a priest, high priest. You know that, on the Day of Atonement. So who officiated at Calvary at the crucifixion? And of course, you would have to conclude it was Roman soldiers and wicked Jews. They were not the high priest. Are you with me? And moreover, who was the Lamb? And if he be the Lamb, because in Hebrews 8:4 it says, while he was on earth, he could not be a priest. Hebrews 8:4. An atonement can only be made by the high priest, of whom Yeshua is our high priest. So he was the Lamb at Calvary, not the high priest. So he could not have made the atonement at Calvary, but only subsequent to Calvary the atonement was made, because Hebrews 8:4 says, while he was on earth, he was not a priest. So we picked him up in Daniel chapter 7, and he moved from the holy place to the most holy place. And this is where we pick him up now. John picks him up in chapter 22, and John is letting us know that, but let's read from verse 8 to give ourselves some context. And I, Yohanan, saw and heard these matters. And when I heard and saw, I fell down to worship before the feet of the messenger who showed me these matters. And he said to me, see, do not, for I am your fellow servant and of your brothers, the prophets, and of those who are guarding the words of this book. Worship Elohim. Today is a day like that we're supposed to come and worship him, but the foolish virgin said we're not. Are you with me? And he said to me, do not seal the words of this prophecy of this book. Do not seal the word and the prophecy of the book of Revelation. I want my people to understand it. Don't seal it. And you pick that up in Daniel chapter 12:4, when Daniel was told, shut the book, Daniel. It's not for you what is contained in here. It's for the people at the end time upon whom the head of the world comes. So that's us, the end time generation. And that's why we sing, we are the end time generation. Are you with me? So Johannan wants us to know, don't bow down to this messenger. In verse 10, and he said to me, do not seal the words of the prophecy of this book. See the emphasis? Because the time is near. And verse 11, he who does wrong, let him do more wrong. You see, at this time, he comes out of the sanctuary. He's not making atonement anymore. The door is closed. So Noah's closing of the heart's door is synonymous with this time. That's why it is called, it is like in the days of Noah. When the door was locked, it wasn't Noah who locked the heart door. It was Yah who knocked it. That means nobody could come out or nobody could go in. It's the close of probation. So whatever close you're caught in, either wicked or righteously, that is the time that you have sealed your eternity. Either you're going to the kingdom or you're going to the lake of fire. We've got to understand that. He who does wrong, let him do more wrong. He who is filthy, let him be more filthy. He who is righteous, let him be more righteous. He who is set apart, let him be more set apart. And see, I am coming speedily, and my reward is with me to give each man according to his work. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are those doing. Did you hear that? Doing. You can't say you believe in Yah and you keep his commandment, and all you mean is that you attend church on the Sabbath. That's not so commandment keeping. Not at all. He said, blessed are those doing his commandments. It's a verb. Your faith is a verb. It's action. So that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. This man in Matthew chapter 22 and verse 11, he smuggled his way in. But the word said you got to come through the what? The gate. The gate. We've got to understand that. So Yeshua comes out. And he said, no man knoweth is coming. No man know. And preachers preach this, and they teach this, and I mean loudly. But they don't seem to understand that the coming in Malachi 3 and Daniel 7 is not his second coming, but it is his coming to the wedding. Are you with me? So he said, no man knoweth the day nor the hour when I come. You don't know when the wedding took place. Did you? You enter the wedding by way of faith because your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. The book teaches that the judgment must take place before the wedding takes place. Because you can't have everybody coming to the wedding until you have to wear the robe of righteousness to come to the wedding. So he has to examine the guests who come to the wedding. And that's why he found this man in Matthew chapter 22 and verse 11, who never had the righteousness as a robe wearing. So he turfed him out. Are you with me? But they say, no man knoweth. Did they know the how? He says, keep watch even through the second and the third watch. Now, if you have not studied to show yourself approved, then you won't even know when the watches are. He's not talking about a Rolex here. He's talking about the watches of the night. And you will recall back in Egypt, the angel of death came when? In the second watch at midnight. That's when the loud cry was made. And when was that? It was the night of Passover. But the churches say, we are not keeping Passover. So when the angel of death came, they will not be in the house. Are you following me? They do not keep these festivals because they say they're done away with. The word says, you must do these things. How often? He said, as often as you do it in remembrance of me. And we pick that up in Luke chapter 22, don't we? The very night he made the covenant with his disciples. He said, I will not drink that cup. I desire to drink it, but I'm not going to drink it until the kingdom made new. What does that tell you? He said, there is a Passover in the kingdom. But the church said, it's done away with. And my question is, who are they taking their instructions from? Is it the word of Yah? So that provenance of the feast days, it's true and it's real. And it speaks to the relevance and the relevance of the times in which we live. We sing, don't we? In times like these, we need what? You need a savior. But what else do you need? You need an attorney. And he's the advocate, isn't it? You need a judge, because he's the judge of all the earth. You need a lamb, and he is the lamb. Are you with me? So just think. You attend court because you've committed a crime, as we saw in Daniel chapter 7. And you're facing the death penalty. Why? Because we're told that breaking the Sabbath carries that kind of punishment. It's a death warrant. And it's a sin, is it not? And the word says that the wages of sin is death. That sin demands no other recompense except death. And that's why the grave is so greedy, because it's never satisfied. And so the wages of sin is death. So when you break the Sabbath, you break the commandment, you're on your way to court. And the judge can either pardon you, that's if you ask for pardon, or send you to your death. That's what Daniel 7 is trying to teach us, because in the book of Amos, chapter 8 and verse 11, what do we read? We read, see, the days are coming, which are the now days, declares the Master Yahweh, that I shall send a hunger, a famine in the land, not a hunger of bread, nor a thirst for water, but for the hearing of the word of Yah. Did you hear that? That's now. There is a hunger in the land for hearing the true word of Yah, understanding the true word. There is a famine in the land. The people are in church every day, every week, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, but the word wants you to know they are still hungry, because those who are giving them the word are not expounding it as the prophets did. It's not expository. And moreover, they are giving it to you. They have lamps because they have Bible, because the word is the Bible. and the Bible is the lamp. But he says, the foolish ones, they have lamps, but no oil. The Holy Spirit was not teaching them. Jezebel was teaching them. Balaam was teaching them. That's why they come up with some of the things they do. And because you're not a farmer, you cannot detect what a tear looks like from a wheat, not until the day of harvest. And the wheat harvest is the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost. And because the church doesn't keep the Feast of Wheat, it doesn't know. And so it embraces darnel and believe it is a wheat. So Amos wants to know, he said, in that day, the beautiful maidens and strong young men shall faint from thirst. Did you get that? He said, the people in the churches, because of the paucity, the lack of the true gospel of the kingdom being preached, they will thirst. That's what he says. Those swearing by the guilt of Shamaron, who say, as your mighty ones live, O Dan. Remember, Dan was the first tribe to apostatize. And as the way of Beersheba lives, and they shall fall and never rise again. Amos wants us to know that. So if we turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, I just want to read this to clarify the issue. Because sometimes we conflate things that are not of the same genre. 1 Thessalonians 5, it says, but of the times and the seasons. Now, if you're a foolish exegete, you start to think spring, summer, autumn, or winter. No, it's talking about the appointed times, the feast days. But of the times and the feast days, that's what he's saying, and the season, brethren, you have no need, I have no need to write unto you. For yourself know perfectly well that the day of Yahshua cometh as a thief in the night. Did you get that? And so the preachers, they go to town on this and they say he's coming back as a thief in the night. That's what they say. They are not realizing that this message was spoken to the church of Sardis. Because Sardis had a name, but did not have the right character. He said, you have a name, but you are a dead church. So he's speaking this to the dead church. He only comes as a thief in the night to the church that is sleeping. Understand that. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them as travail upon a woman with child. And they shall not escape, but ye, brethren, are not in darkness. You know what? If you can't be in darkness if you're following Yah. And somebody asks you, so are you saying you're righteous? And they're tempting you to say yes. And then when you say yes, they accuse you of being self-righteous. Well, if they ask, are you righteous? Just let them know you're doing right. That's what righteousness means, right doing. So implicit in the statement they just ask you, and if you were to say, yes, I am doing right, then you could say, are you doing right? And if they're not doing right, they are wrongdoers, they're lawless. So really, they're exposing themselves to you. And you need to understand that. Because we're called to righteousness, not to unrighteousness. We're called from unrighteousness to righteousness. And he said, the word, John 17:17, sanctify them by that word is true. So we need to understand that. And he's saying, they shall not escape, but he, brethren, you're not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. You are children of light. You have oil in your lamp. And the children of the day, we are not of the night. That's the foolish one, nor in darkness. So when Paul tells us that, Paul is making also the distinction between the first coming and the second coming, and also between the wedding coming and the second coming. He's making that. And in Revelation chapter 16 and verse 15, we also read, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, and has that true character, lest he walk naked like Laodicea. Laodicea is wretched, is poor, is blind, and is naked. And they see his shame. Now the church is blind, so he doesn't see his own shame. Adam saw his own shame. When Yah called out to him, he says, I was hiding because I was naked. Laodicea doesn't know that. He's not conscious. That's the sad thing. And even though mercy lingers, and we're told in Revelation 3:3, remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, if you don't keep watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. Did you hear? You must watch right throughout the night, all 4 watches, because he's likely to come in the second or the third. He tells us that in Luke. They fell asleep at midnight. And so their oil run out because the master tarried. And in that tarrying, persecution increased. But he said it's those who endure to the very end. These are the ones that will be saved. And so we're getting a better understanding now, according to what Moses recorded in Exodus chapter 25, 8 and 9. Build me a sanctuary so that I may dwell with you, and I will teach you the mechanics of salvation. And Moses, build it after the pattern shown thee. We see that in Hebrews 8, chapter 8 and verse 5 also. Build it after what? The pattern. Now, understand why I'm saying this. Yeshua says, Moshe, I know you were born in Egypt, and there are a lot of idols. There is the temple of Ra, Amun-Ra, in Egypt. And their way of worshiping is not like mine. So this tabernacle that I'm asking you to build, where I may dwell with you, is so that I can teach you and the people of Israel the mechanics of salvation. So be specific, be circumspect in the measurements and the specification that I shall give you. Understand the side view, the front elevation, and the plan view. Understand that. Understand the hidden details. that I should reveal to you by way of the Spirit. Don't build it like the temple in Egypt. Don't do that. So that was a model to practice all that we see here. So when we come down to Revelation and we're looking at Laodicea, and we see a church over there and a church over there, and that one's keeping Sunday, and that one's keeping Tuesday, and all saying that it's a Sabbath, when the model here is the 7th day is a Sabbath, you know they are not watching his blueprint. They're not building on the house, on the foundation that he laid down. He said, in Matthew 16, Peter, disciple, tell the dean, who do men say I am? They say, well, some say that you're Elijah. Some say you're Jeremiah. Some say you're John the Immerser. He said, it's all well and good what they say, but you are my disciple. Who do you say I am? And Kepha said, you are the Messiah, the Son of the Most High. He said, in essence, Peter, you have oil in your lamp. Your lamp is burning. You've trimmed your way. Flesh and blood did not reveal that to you, but the Ruach revealed that to you. He said, Petros, meaning the pebble. Peter, you're a pebble. Petros. On this Petra, the rock, I will build my church. And it intrigues me, and perhaps it should intrigue you in the way that it intrigues me, simply because of this. Because as I think of that, there's a temple in Jerusalem, and he's letting you know it is so corrupt that in time, not one stone will be left unturned. And the Roman Titus will soon come and tear it down. But the church, the assembly that I am building, nothing can tear it down. And not even the gates of hell can prevail against it. That's the model. That's the template that we should build on. That's the foundation given to the people. So when you come and say you are a Methodist and a Church of B and Assembly Adventist and a Catholic and an Episcopalian, what are you saying? Teaching the doctrines of men? They're not commandments. And so we understand in 1 Samuel chapter 3, in verse 2, it says, and it came to pass at that time when Eli was laid down in his place and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see, at which time the lamp of Yah had not yet gone out. But Yah was not on speaking terms with the priest. So he spoke to whom? To Samuel, the young man. And you kind of get the impression now that Yah is not on speaking term with some of the priests. And he's speaking to little, perhaps you may conclude, house churches. And when you speak to the disciples of Yah, who were all fishermen and unlearned, they were not exegetes, the scribes and the Pharisees, they get angry. The mainstream always get angry when you try to teach them because they feel that they have nothing to learn. And so it's appropriate, is it not, for me to quote that Prime Minister of England, that wartime prime minister we call Sir Winston Churchill. He says, history, with its flickering lamp, stumbles along the trail of the past, trying to reconstruct its scenes to revive the echoes. and kindle with pale gleams the passion of former days. What is the worth of all this? The only guide to man is his conscience. The only shield to his memory is the rectitude and sincerity of his actions. It is very imprudent to walk through life without this shield, because we are so often mocked by the failure of our hopes and the upsetting of our calculation. But with this shield, however, the fates may play, we march always in the ranks of honor. He said, so often we fail in the hopes and the upsetting of our calculations, but with the shield, however, the fates may play, we march always in the ranks of honor. And he's telling you, even as Paul does in Ephesians, now come, put on the whole armor of Yah. Put on, gird your loins with truth, breastplate of righteousness, helmet of salvation. What's your shield? That's your shield. Are you with me? So you pull out your sword, it's a double edge. And you must know how to be a swordsman. You must know how to, because you could injure yourself. And so, I don't know whether you're a musketeer or you're a Zorro, but the word is that you must know how to wield this sword, because it's double-edged and it cuts to the quick. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light in the path that I walk. So it makes sense, does it not, that having established that Exodus 25:8 is the model on which we should build our assemblies, whether it be church, in a home, under a tree, under the stones in Stonehenge, or in open air. Build it as Moses built, and practice as Moses practiced. Because I did not come to destroy, said he in Matthew 5:17, all that Moses and the prophets wrote, but I have come to magnify it, to fulfill it, to show you how it's done. And someone may well ask, are you saying we should kill lamb? I said, oh, Yeshua was the ultimate lamb. No, we must keep the feast according to what Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7 and 8. Keep the feast, but not with the whole leaven. Everything. So, if you see the model on that your pastor is building on, and it doesn't look like the one Moses built on, this is what advice I have for you. And Yohanan has for you. Revelation 18, verse 23. The light of the Lamb will never shine again. No, this is serious news. The church is supposed to be a light to a darkened world. We're told that gross darkness, and we have understood that gross is 12 times 12, 144,000. That's how dark the world has become. And the church, that incandescent light that should be on the hill, that spiritual Jerusalem, shining down into the valley of the world, we're told, The light of the lamp will never shine in you again. The voice of the bridegroom, Yeshua. We establish who the bridegroom is. The bridegroom, his voice and bride will never be heard again. It's talking to Laodicea. Your merchants were the world's important people by your sorcery, by their sorceries, dispensing drugs and all that kind of stuff. Spell. All the nations were deceived, led astray. Come out, said Revelation 18:4. Come out. And notice when this messenger is speaking, he comes all lit up. So you won't miss it. Even if you're sleeping at midnight in the second or the third watch. Come out. And I hear the people say, oh, I can't leave this church because, my grandfather was a deacon here. What? Let me remind you something. Lot was a magistrate in Sodom. He was the chief magistrate in Sodom. They asked him, you've come here to judge us? So when Yah told Lot, you might be a magistrate, but you need to leave Sodom and run for your life. Abraham came in Genesis chapter 14 and took you from those who had captured you, and you still went back into Sodom to live and allow your children to imbibe all those teachings in Sodom. No wonder when you got out and you went to Zoar, those two daughters said, let us sleep with our father, incestuous. You Hamorites and Moabites, sleeping with your father. That's what they did. And that's why Deuteronomy chapter 23 said, no Hamorite on you, no, what? Moabite must come into the temple of Yah until the 10th generation. And then we have who? We have a young lady called Naomi who left Judah and went with her husband. Left because there was a famine in the land. You didn't hear me. I said Naomi left Judah because there was a famine in the land. The Bible said, according to Amos 8 and verse 11, there is going to be a famine in the land. It's now. And people will be going from place to place, from seat to seat, from church to church, trying to find the truth. But the reason they're not finding it is that the bridegroom's voice and the bride will not be heard at all in you, because at one time the lamp was flickering. It's gone out. Ichabod. The glory is gone. It's gone. And the people sit in the quiet repose of their recliners in the church, enjoying the song service. They usually enjoy the song service, but they never get eye on the word. They don't like that. They say, oh, he's throwing words. We read in Ezekiel chapter 10, don't we? Turn with me there. It says, then the glory of Yah went up from the cherub and stood over the threshold of the house. And the house was filled with the cloud, and the court was full of the brightness of Yah's glory. But then I hear people say, do you know how long it took us to build this church? And the great pastors who have preached here? Do you understand that? How we got our name? And I would say, turn with me to Jeremiah chapter 7. And I want to read verses 11 and 12 for you. As this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers and thieves? Behold, I myself have seen it, declares Yah. Go now to my place that was in Shiloh. Go and look in Shiloh, where Eli was the priest, and his sons were priests, and he was the custodian of the ark. The same house where Anna prayed. And Eli did not understand their prayer. And Samuel was sleeping one night. And round about the second watch, you hear me? Round about the second or the third watch, Yah spoke to this young boy when he wasn't speaking to the priest, Eli. He said, go now at Shiloh and look, where I made my name was there, dwell at first, and see what I did to it because of the evil of my people Israel. So when you are living in abomination and carrying on abomination in Yah's church and still call it a church, Yah says, you might be there, but I'm not there, I'm gone. Behold, your house is left to you desolate. And for 37 years, the people continued to worship in Jerusalem until Titus comes in AD 70 and the house was destroyed. When the Holy Spirit leaves the place, leaves the church, it's time for you to leave. Come out of her, my people, says the word. That flickering light. So, in the parable of the 10 virgins who went out to meet the bridegroom, all had lamps and vessels for oil, at least for a time. There was seen no difference between them. So with the church that lives just before Yeshua's second coming, that's Laodicea. All have a knowledge of the scriptures, all. We all, and we quote them liberally. All have heard the message of Yeshua, and we all confidently expect his second coming. But the word says, the time of waiting intervenes. Faith is tried in the time of trouble. And when the cry is heard, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go out to meet him. Many are unready. Many are unprepared. They are destitute of the Ruach. Without the Ruach of Yah and the knowledge of his word, it makes no sense. And that's where the church is. So we're reminded as we close in 1 Chronicles 12:32, and of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do. Israel ought to keep Yah's commandments and have the faith of Yeshua. Israel ought to keep the feast days. Israel ought to cease from work, desist from work on these days, and come and worship the Creator. But Israel has refused and has stiffened its neck. That's what Israel has done. And Yah is most displeased with Israel, following the fact that he said in Leviticus 23, speak to the children of Israel, saying they should keep the feast days. Keep them. Keep them. They are the shadows of things to come. and we have rejected them. In 1 Thessalonians 4:16, even to verse 17, for Yeshua himself shall descend from heaven with a shout. With a what? Shout. And with the voice of the archangel and with the trump of Yah. And the dead in Yeshua shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together in the clouds to meet Yah in the air. And so shall we ever be with Yah. So let me just close on this. So Yeshua moved from the holy place to the most holy to conduct a judgment of atonement, after which the banquet of the wedding will take place. But he had to judge the people to see who had the character and worthiness through Yeshua to attend to the wedding. He found a man there that was representative of a group of people who did not have the character. They did not live as how they should do. They did not behave as they should, like we talked about on Sabbath. The women dressed in outlandishly with rings in their noses and rings in their ears and all manner of things and bonnets and so on. And he said, I'm going to give them scab because they like to wear their long hair and they not cover themselves. And so that's how they live. They didn't have the character. They don't wear righteousness. And when you tell them, they get angry. He said that. But he said, I have kept grace to linger. Because the door is about to close, like I close it, and now it's time. And once it's closed, probation is closed. And that's your eternity gone. All the years that you have lived and have been on the earth, it would have been of no avail. The door is closed. And I'm not asking any humans to close the door, even as I did not ask Noah to close the door. And then the rain came and took them all away. So it will be in the coming of the Son of Man, in the second time. Get it? The lamp of Yah has a distinguished provenance. It must shine in the darkness. It must not become complicit with the darkness of this world. Must not. So don't be like the foolish virgins. You have the Bible, but you pay no attention to it. You read the Torah, but you don't understand what it says. Study to show yourself approved, not unto your pastor, not unto your elder, not unto your priest, not unto your bishop, but unto Yah, a workman who does that will not be ashamed. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.